Greetings everyone. Today we have with us Jorge Romanillos, a part of the YWF Board of Directors in the capacity of an organizing co-chair, member of YWF Spain, and the president of European Young Federalists regional chapter of Castilla La-Mancha. Jorge has played a very substantial role in increasing the presence of the YWF on the social media, especially on Instagram, as well as mobilizing volunteers for the organization and expansion of public outreach. He's been a part of Fridays for Future, Extinction Rebellion, alongside being the vice president of his scout group. He's also a member of the youth branch of the Social Democrat Political Party, PSOE, being responsible for European politics and economics in his province. Next year, he is headed to be an intern with a member of the European Parliament from the Socialists and Democrats. 21 years old, Jorge was born and brought up in Guadalajara in Spain and had varied interests ranging from music, sports, scouts, theater, and languages to history, politics, biology, physics, economics, and mathematics. Well, that's quite a lot, and I must admit you're a bit of a polymath. He decided to pursue a bachelor's in philosophy, politics, economics, and law from four different universities. So his course in philosophy, politics, and economics, that's one course, and he recently started pursuing law. So one of the first courses he pursues that offline, and the other one is pursued online. And he is currently pursuing his last course on an Erasmus in Paris. So it's a pleasure to have you with us today, Jorge.
Thank you so much, Omkaar. It's a pleasure for me to be here.
So firstly, Jorge, what do you prefer, Real Madrid or Atletico?
Okay, so I was born on the 24th of May from the year 2000, which is the day that Real Madrid won a Champions League. And so I was raised with this Real Madrid identity, and this is my team. However, I am more interested in basketball and the NBA than in football. But yeah, I'd say Real Madrid for sure.
Well, that's great to know. You have a historical birthday.
Yeah.
So, okay, why did you become a World Federalist and how did you discover the idea? And have your opinions changed since then? Like the first time you came across World Federalism and now?
So the first thing I must say is that I have always had this intuition that we had global problems such as, for example, nuclear weapons or climate crisis, and that we were not facing them in an appropriate manner. We have the United Nations, which is great, but it's so much improbable. So I have always had this feeling, but I didn't have the words to frame these ideas and to give a coherent answer. So it was last summer when I started, well, no, it was when I joined the Young European Federalist, that a woman who is part of the association told me that they were not only European Federalists, but also World Federalists. So I started looking at the World Federalist movement to see what it was. And I came across with the Global Federal League, and I will also Young World Federalist. And it was then when I kind of had a word to describe this feeling I had always had. And it was great to be part of a movement who thought the way I thought, because I live in Guadalajara, which is a small city, and not many people share these kind of ideas. So to be able to share them with such a network of people, it's great. It's quite inspiring. And well, to answer your question, if it has changed, I must say that it was an intuition from the beginning. So I hadn't organized my ideas that much. And that's why I bought a book, which is A World Parliament by Andreas Bammel and Jo Leinen. So it's now when I'm starting to read more about the theory and all the history and the tradition that this idea has. So to be fair, I must say and admit that my ideas are under construction. I have this essence, which is we need global answers to these common questions, common problems. But my thought on all this and the concretion of all these ideas is still under development.
Yeah. So basically, you're still exploring the idea and you have we have formed basic opinions that, okay, you support the idea of a global government, and basically you're deciding on what nitty-gritties of the global governance you're thinking about, like special policies, what should be under the global governance, right?
Yeah, exactly. I have the idea that we need a world government, but I still don't know the details. Like, I don't know if we would need a Senate and a parliament. I don't know which is the best strategy to pursue this goal, if it's to reform the UN, to start something from scratch, to have a global federal league of democracies, which could lead us to this situation. So there are many things, many details that I haven't still figured out. But I think that's not the most important thing. That's something we can still think about. And until I have more a clearer picture of what I think would be great, I think it's good to start fighting for this idea. And that's why I'm part of all these associations and of Young World Federalist, more in concrete.
It's quite the same over here because there's a inexhaustible list of World Federalist literature. We have the World Parliament by Andreas Bummel and Joe Lyon, and then we have Union Now by Clarence Strait and a lot of other works. So it takes time to go through them, and sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming. But
Yeah.
overall, all of us, we like the idea and we are like strongly supporting it.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Jorge, you hail from Spain, which is currently a constitutional monarchy. What are your opinions on such a polity, and how do you assess Spanish democracy?
Okay, so the first thing I must say in this regard is that from a moral perspective, from an abstract moral perspective, it doesn't make sense for me to have a monarchy. Not at all, because I believe in the equality among humans, and it's absolutely opposite to the equality of opportunity to have inherited a crown and to be a king. However, to understand why we have a parliamentary monarchy in Spain, we must understand Spanish history, and it's more complex than just abstract moral ideas. So there is quite a social consensus in Spain with this parliamentary monarchy, and it doesn't have a huge role in Spanish politics. It has a symbolic role, and it's true that it has a lot of power, but in practice, it doesn't limit democracy at all. The main things, the main competences are democratically driven. So although we have a king, it's not a problem for me to have a good democracy in Spain. And then in the long run, so I understand that we have it now, but in the long run, I think we must pursue a republic. It would be, I think, much more coherent with ideas such as equality of opportunity and equality.
Basically, in spirit, Spain is a democracy, but symbolically, we have a king, just like the United Kingdom and let's say Australia, Canada, and other countries, right?
Yeah. And it's like the figure that represents the state, but we have a president which has the whole executive power. So the king is the leader of the army and everything, but in practice, he doesn't have a really powerful role in Spanish politics. Mm-hmm. So I think it's not a big limit to democracy at all in Spain.
Indeed. Moving on to the next question, you have been a part of Fridays for Future and Extinction Rebellion, and you are a strong proponent of environmentalism. How do you propose that the governments address the environmental crisis of contemporary times?
So first of all, I must say that I believe we are living an environmental emergency. We have a huge ecological crisis, and we have been warned of it ever since the 70s. We knew we had a problem, but we had a global problem and national structures, national political entities to live with this problem. And facing the global ecological crisis also brings about costs in the short term, because you must limit some products such as vehicles which consume oil, and Thus, it has costs which must be assumed by countries. However, if we look at the long run, we have to change all these things. So that's why we started having protocols such as Kyoto Protocol and then the Paris Agreement, which is quite nice to have all those agreements on a global scale to face this global problem. The problem with these solutions is that the implementation of measures is completely up to each state. And we have had these COPs, last one in Glasgow, and we are not seeing a really meaningful progress. So if we had a higher authority in the form, for instance, of a global government, which cared about global problems and not only national interest, it would be much better to attach or to address all these problems. And in concrete, this one, which has to do with environment.
So basically, like we have a lot of documents coming up, we have a lot of conventions, but executive authority is not there, right, in implementing them.
Yeah, exactly. It's up to each state. And with Trump, we had the US driven out from this agreement. So it is much improvable, this system. And if we had a global democracy, which cared about all these things, which could take decisions which could be implemented afterwards, it would be much better.
Indeed. With this, what's your assessment of the European Union? Like, how successful has it been in its purpose? And what reforms would you suggest in the EU?
Yeah, the EU, I understand the EU as a cathedral which is under construction. It's not a finished project at all. And to know if it has fulfilled its purposes, we must first know which are its purposes or which were its purposes when it began. So first of all, it was to make impossible another war among Europeans again. We have had the First World War, the Second World War, which was mainly centered in Europe, and we wanted to make it impossible to have another war again. That's what we started sharing steel and coal between these first countries, in which we could count Germany and France, which made economically impossible to have another war again. So the first goal, which was to make impossible another war among Europeans, has been fulfilled, as we have had 70 years or more of peace in Europe, which is something we have never witnessed before. Then we had this economic reconstruction and economic progress, and the EU has really benefited all its member states to achieve it. So it has also been useful in this regard. Then we had as another goal to defend and protect our core values. And it has done a lot, but it has still a long way to go. So it has done a lot. It's a cathedral under construction, and therefore there are many reforms we can undertake in the EU.
So what's your opinion on similar unions? For example, we have the African Union, which is not exactly as powerful as the European Union, and we have the ASEAN in Asia, and we have the SAARC also. So how do you exactly consider these unions? Do you think that they can maybe go to the EU level and achieve the purpose they were created for, or like how do you study the trends?
I believe all these regional projects which transcend national entities are really, really, really good for our global purposes, but also for the development of these areas. As we know that in a globalized world, a single state cannot do more, cannot do much. And we know there are many benefits from cooperation. And for me, it's great to be to have all these initiatives which aim to do exactly this, to coordinate efforts, to be stronger through union, to be stronger together. And I really support these ideas. It's also a way, I think we can reach this utopia, which is right now, of having a world federation, by having this supranational level, which is the European Union at the European level, or the African Union can be at the African level, or the Western Africa Union. But I mean, Summing up states and cooperating among them is a great idea from my perspective. And the EU can have a great role sharing its good practices with all these entities.
This is a follow-up question to that. I've come across media reports and articles which indicate towards a possible collapse of the EU. Especially these things were coming right after Brexit, and also recently we had some problems in Poland. And also, I wanted to ask, like, what are your opinions on this? And do you think that this can happen? And secondly, what can be the possible consequences of this happening? Suppose this happens.
Okay, so there will always be problems not only in the EU but everywhere. Having that said, it's true that the last decade has been really intense for the European Union in the sense that we had this Brexit. It was the first time that a member state went out from the European Union. So it must not be considered just another problem. However, it's true we have this Polish crisis and this Hungarian crisis within the EU, which threaten democracy in their own states. But all these articles saying that the EU is going to collapse or it's going to be distracted by this crisis, I don't think are realistic at all. And right now, in fact, I believe the momentum has changed a lot. Right now, we have Scholz as the chancellor in Germany, and he is really pro-EU. We have also many other leaders among many other countries which really support the EU. And we will be having these presidential elections in France in which Macron may be re-elected. So if he was, and we had this president in France and this chancellor in Germany and the president we have in Spain and all these political configuration, I think the perspective for the European Union is really positive and not distraction at all. However, if it was distracted, if the EU finished, I think it would be a disaster for the whole European Union. As I believe, if Slovenia, for instance, had to negotiate with China, the outcome would be much worse than if it is the EU who is leading this negotiation. Also, if we consider scale economies, it will be a disaster, an economic disaster. We have a really huge bonds and economic relations among our states. And if the EU finished, it would be an absolute disaster. So I think we cannot afford losing something as precious as the European Union.
Indeed. And let's hope that never comes, that never happens. That's something all of us are working for. And let's hope that day never comes upon humanity. And maybe other unions, they strengthen. And like this EU phenomena, I've personally observed that initially it was considered to be incredible. Like this cannot happen. France and Germany will again get into a war, and then UK will again interfere. But that did happen. And that actually makes me more sanguine about the possibility of having an Asian Union, or let's say an African Union in the future, which is strong enough, and in turn a World Federation. So if the EU collapses, that would be like the sinking of the last ray of hope for World Federalists. And our work will increase manifold.
Yeah. And many things which were considered utopians have happened in our world. If we thought about the 17th century, for instance, there were hardly no democracies in the world. So who thought we would have this state of circumstances right now in 2022, in which India is a democracy, we have the European Union, the US exists and is a democracy. So we cannot foresee what's going to happen in 4 centuries. But we cannot even foresee what's going to happen in 70, 80 years, which is what happened with the European Union. After the end of the Second World War, no one could predict something such as the EU we have right now. So we cannot know what is going to happen in 70, 80 years from now. And it really depends on the people who is willing to dream this future and to work for it. So I think it's a really great message of hope, and the people who claim to be realistic and realists and all these things sometimes are not that realist because they cannot explain phenomena such as the EU or the rise of democracy during the last centuries.
Indeed. That what role would you attribute to students in enriching the polity of a democracy, considering that you are a student political activist yourself?
Yeah, I believe students have a huge advantage regarding democracy, but also activism in general, which is we have ideas and also we have time. So this mix of great attributes make us available to fight for our dreams and because if we have ideas, we can dream. If we just see what is the real state, the current state of the world, and we think it's not going to change ever, it cannot be changed, we are going to remain the same. But if we can foresee a different future, then we can have reasons to act. And then we can just act if we have time. And everybody has time, but when you're an adult and you work, your time is much more limited than when you are a student. When you're a student, you have to attend classes, you have to study, but you don't have all these responsibilities for adult life, such as having a family and everything. So you can spend a lot of time in many things which can be considered post-materialist, as strengthening democracy, participating actively in organizations, associations, civil society in general, which is something really, really fundamental for any democracy. So that's a huge advantage we have as students.
And that adds to your CV as well as your professional experience, to your social skills also.
Yeah, for sure. Participating in all these associations gives you competencies which you may not develop when you are studying maths or social sciences at school or university. It's taking to practice what you have studied in theory. And it's developing a skill which is going to be fundamental in any life, which is social relations and being able to share your ideas with people, communicate, and work together. So for sure, it adds to your CV.
And continuing on the politics thing, like a bit of a philosophical question, most people tend to be skeptical about politicians, and many try to discourage their acquaintances from taking the political plunge. And most politicians are tagged as corrupt, and they often find themselves in an explanatory position. Politics as a whole, a lot of us believe that it's a bad word. So, why do you think this attitude persists, and how can it be dispelled?
I believe politics are always going to exist because they have the function of ordering social relations in any society. So politics are always going to exist. As politics are always going to exist, there will always people who are going to be politicians and who are going to take in charge of all these things that politics must decide. So if we believe there are always going to be politics, there are always going to be politicians, if we believe they are not good right now, we have the responsibility, we have the duty to go into politics. So it must not be something like, okay, politics are corrupted, so I'm not going to get into politics. It's okay, politics are improvable, and I'm going to do as best as I can. I'm going to do my best to improve them. So each of us has to really believe that we have the right to participate, and we have to have the initiative to get involved in politics. And you can be involved in politics in many ways, not only as a politician. So I believe we have to take this step of considering something ours and of stepping up to these responsibilities. And then how to improve politics is so that we can make them less corrupted. So there are checks and balances which may help. There are some tools and strategies that political science has said that are more useful. So we must attach to them, but it really depends also in individual responsibility and in being really legal, clean, pure ourselves. In politics, you are going to have to take decisions which are complex. It's not always easy to be that pure and to take good decisions, but it is really important to step up with this intention of doing your best and being really fair with the people you are representing and the people you are saying to protect and to look for.
Indeed. So you're currently an active political worker. You're associated with a political party. Could you tell us something about your work as in that capacity? I believe we're in responsibility of economics and European politics. So what exactly do you do, and like what's the hierarchy of that party? That's a lot of questions actually, but could you just give us an overview of the thing?
Yeah, so first of all, I was involved in politics because I really believe in social democracy. When I started studying philosophy, politics, and economics, I discovered a political philosopher, which is called John Rawls. And it was through him that I said, okay, it's social democracy, the theory, the political theory, which I believe is best among the ones I studied. And that's why I decided to get involved in the Social Democrat political party in Spain, which is PSOE, Partido Socialista Obrero Español. And not only in it, but also in the youth branch of this political party. So I am right now active in the provincial and regional level of this youth branch. And at the provincial level, I am Secretary of Economy and of European politics. So my role as a secretary of these areas is first of all divulge what politicians are doing right now in these fields, because that's a great way to take politics closer, to bring politics closer to the citizen. Sometimes they don't feel represented, or they don't like politics because they don't know what is happening up there. So bringing them close is one of the biggest missions I have in this role. But also bringing new ideas to the table. So being more ambitious, maybe, than the politicians that are acting right now. So one of my roles, for instance, being responsible of European politics in my province, is to promote a European federation, which is an idea that may be more ambitious than the ones that politicians may have right now. So not only widespreading the functioning of our politics and the politics that are undertaken right now, but also bringing about new politics, new policies that I believe are going to make our society better. That's kind of my role right now. And to put another example, at the regional level, I was invited to prepare the ideas and the policies that we were going to defend as the youth branch of this political party for the next 4 years in the field of environment, so ecology, and also the field of foreign affairs and all these. So it was in these two fields I had to propose ideas for the next 4 years. So I coordinated a work group with people interested in these fields, and we were able to introduce ambitious policies in the ecological field, but also we were going to introduce the World Federation and ambition into our politics and resolutions. So it's something also important, like to be able to have this say in these resolutions, and to be able to introduce these ideas which were not on the table, and which wouldn't be if there was not someone which was interested in it and participated in it and introduced it. So yeah, that's just to put another example of what we do there.
Those were two really good examples, and like it's interesting to know how this thing works. And I didn't know that there was so much of like work behind political parties, and a lot of people, they think the same, like, okay, they just contest elections, maybe come up with a few manifestos and that's it. But it's much beyond that, and that's enriching to know, like through this thing you're getting to know a lot of things. You're going to form new opinions and perspectives, and in the long run that can actually help us in incorporating world federalism into the mainstream politics. We have a question coming up on that later on. So I'll move on to two very personal questions, not exactly personal, but questions which I had personally I wanted to ask you, career related. You're pursuing you're pursuing bachelor's in 4 subjects across 4 universities: philosophy, economics, political science, and law recently. So how does the system work? And you pursue one course online and the other one offline. So like, don't you get stressed out? And why did you exactly select such a subject combination?
Yeah, so when I was 18, I had to take the decision of whether I wanted to go to university or not. And if I went to university, what was I going to study? So one of my dreams when I was an adolescent was to bring humanity to Mars, to explore the universe and everything. So I thought about studying philosophy, physics and mathematics or something like that. But then I realized that we had more urgent issues and that I really was passionate about trying to solve them. So that's why I decided to study philosophy, politics, and economics. I wanted to try to give global answers to our global problems, to be able to do it. So I started studying this bachelor. As it combines three disciplines, we don't get as in deep in each of those disciplines as someone who studied just economics. I don't know that much about economics as someone who just focuses himself on that. And that's the same regarding philosophy or politics. However, I have this interdisciplinary view, which provides me with tools to see reality from a really global and holistic perspective. So I really found it really interesting. And also being able to move across universities. When you study political science, it's not as objective as if you studied engineering in computers, for instance, which may be taught in a similar way across different universities. When you study politics, university can be really important on the ideas you receive. So moving across different universities was enriching and it was really interesting. And it was it was in this last course of my bachelor. It lasted 4 years. That I decided I wanted to study law. And I wanted to study law because it's super important for politics. What a politician basically does is to change laws and to impose them. So I thought it would be really, really interesting. And regarding time and stress and everything, I think it's a matter of priorities and a matter of organization. So I think personal development is really important for activism, but also for studies and for life in general. If you know how to monitor your time and how to make it productive, your results can really be improved. And it's a matter for me of organization and having the skills to manage correctly your time. However, this bachelor in law, which I am currently studying in distance in an online basis, I'm not going to finish it in 4 years. I'm not taking all the subjects, all the courses that a normal person who is focusing himself on law would do. I'm just taking 2 out of the 5, which would be normal for a normal pace. So I may finish this bachelor in 10 years, but I don't care. What I really want to do is to have all this juridic knowledge, to have this understanding of how law works, and that's why I am studying. And I want to make it also compatible with my work, because I will start working soon, or my internships, or whatever I'm doing.
Well, lawyers are the leaders of the future, as said, and also like that's quite a nice combination of subjects you have taken. So you have also plans to work ahead, and I'm honestly very inspired by that. I plan a career in law in the future, and preferably after that, let's say international relations or public policy. So I look forward to I'm looking forward to subjects like yours, and that's quite an adventurous life as a student. Because I've generally seen people like they're just over with one course and they try to skip studies, and like over here we have another person who's so passionate about studies, like he's having 3 or 4 bachelors together. So that was quite inspiring.
Thank you.
That could you enlighten us a bit about the Erasmus scheme and how it's benefited you?
Yeah, so Erasmus is an opportunity for university students in Europe who want to spend 1 year or 1 semester abroad. So in my case, I was able to come to Paris, which is a beautiful city, and I really wanted to come here. Also to improve my French, because it's also important at the European level. And it is a great opportunity to get outside from your country to be able to know other cultures, to meet really a lot of international students. So that really opens your mind. And it also makes you more autonomous, as you have to live on your own. You go outside from your house, from the comfortable life with your family, and you have to be able to face all these tasks that life also has, as cooking, as doing all these domestic tasks. So it makes you grow from a personal standpoint in many ways, by getting to know many people and by getting to live new circumstances.
Coming to exploring other cultures and all, English isn't your mother tongue. It isn't mine either. So how do you react to the dominance of the English language on a global level? What are your opinions on languages like Esperanto and Globasa? Do you think that language of global diplomacy, global business, that should be replaced?
I think it's great. I don't know if it's going to be what is expected for me to say, but I really believe it's great to have English as a common language across the world. From a pragmatic perspective, it gives us a way of communicating with each other. I mean, you are from India, I'm from Spain, and we are able to talk because we both talk in English. And English is so widespread right now that I don't know if it's going to be possible to impose another language such as Esperanto across the world. So I think we have to accept that language, the language we speak at the global scale is English, to really benefit from that reality. And that doesn't mean that we shouldn't protect our languages, because they have a great cultural richness. I mean, it's great to be able to speak Spanish because you can access the Spanish culture. And I don't only focus on English because it's going to be useful, and I try to learn French because it's also useful to communicate with other people. So I'm not saying we just should focus in English because it's going to be more useful. But I think it's great to have this global language, and I think we have to promote it. We have to promote that everybody speaks English because it's a way of having more freedom to be able to access more knowledge, because there are lots of things which are written in English. So we shouldn't renounce to our languages, but we should really take all the advantages of being able to talk a global language.
Indeed. So basically, people conserve their culture and their local language, but alongside they learn an extra language which is already very widespread and can actually help us to bridge the language gap, right?
Yeah, for sure.
One last question on your career and the great things you're doing on the professional front. Tell us something about your internship under the Socialists and the Democrats member of the European Parliament. I believe you will be having that next year, right?
Yeah, I will start in September, and it is a paid internship in Brussels. So my task would be to help this MEP, this member of the European Parliament, with whomever he tells me to do. Okay, so read this resolution and make me a briefing, or prepare this speech, or I don't know what is going to be. But to be able to live this, or to witness the functioning of the European Parliament, which is the institution in which all the Europeans who are part of the European Union is represented, is a great opportunity for me. And it's going to be a great way to learn more, but it's also to be a way of getting closer to people who take decisions, to be able to promote ideas such as European federalism, but also world federalism, because this MEP is pro world government. So I think it's going to be a great chance in many regards.
Sounds quite exciting to me, and congratulations on getting the opportunity. And all my best wishes to you for that.
And in fact, I wanted to say something. When you were saying before that participating in all these associations gave you skills, it does also, as a student, give you a lot of opportunities because you get to know a lot of people in these associations. So this MEP, I knew him because I was part of Young European Federalists. I was saying that I knew this MEP because I am a member of Young European Federalists, so I attended many events and organized some of them. And he is a member of the European, the Union of European Federalists, which is the association over 35. Young European Federalists is when you have less than 35 years, when you are less than 35 years old, and he was part of this other association. So that's how I met him, and that's why we got in contact, and that's how the opportunity appeared. So getting active in all these associations is not only useful from an objective perspective of your skills, but also it gives you a lot of opportunities, such as in this case.
That's amazing then, like you got to know, and I'm quite interested in like getting associated with such organizations, and the opportunity is absolutely amazing. There's no doubt in that. And that's quite interesting. So I'll again come back to World Federalism. So you're a member of YWF Spain and also JEF Spain. So how's been the journey of both the organizations until now, and what do you plan for the future?
So Young World Federalists were founded in 2019. So it's a quite young association. It has all the potential of the world, and right now we are just beginning. So I think in the short term, we have to establish presence in all the countries of the world, which sounds ambitious, but I think that should be our goal. And I think we have the tools to be able to achieve them. From the perspective of Young European Federalists, it's something not that utopian, achieving a European federation. So we have to propose concrete political reforms for the EU, such as, for instance, right now, when we talk about foreign affairs, the EU works on a unanimity basis. If we switch into a qualified majority method for decisions, we will be much more agile. So there are many concrete measures, such as achieving a fiscal union in the EU, which could improve. They could be federal steps towards this European Federation. So right now, we have to grow our members exactly the same as in Young World Federalist, but we have also to lobby our politicians to be able to achieve these goals. It's different, a little bit different from Young World Federalist in the sense that it's not that easy to implement our proposals for the world government. So here, with the Young European Federalists, we have more concrete political action of lobbying. And for Young World Federalists, the strategy is different, I believe, which is more bringing the world and the concept of World Federalism outside because people don't know about it, and to widespread the idea, and to make both a top-down and a bottom-up approach. We have to lobby also politicians, the ones who are taking all these decisions on a global scale, because they are the ones who can make things change. But we have also to widespread the idea of World Federalism. So that's the perspective. It's maybe not that ambitious because I don't see a world government happening in 10 years or in 20. Whereas I do see a European Federation and a change of the treaties in a much more short term. But yeah, that would be like the two horizons I foresee in the short run or the mid term for these associations.
Maybe a strong European Federation can be a stepping stone for a World Federation on the longer run.
For sure. Yeah.
And I'll come to the last question now. How do you think we can bring the issue of World Federalism into mainstream politics? How to exactly pitch it to such an extent that political parties are compelled to take a stance on it and elections are contested on it and so
on? As I said before, I have been able to introduce the term of World Federalism and World Federalism within the youth of the Social Democrat Party in Spain. So if we are active not only in this association of young World Federalists, but also in political parties, we can bring ourselves these ideas to the table because they are super reasonable, and we can debate them, and we can convince other people within our political existing structures. Also, we have to lobby them, sending letters, getting them to know that there are people who have signed these demands. So, and also writing articles and widespreading the idea is a way of finally, in one moment, reaching the political parties. And we have to cooperate with other associations. For instance, if we want global governance, and improved global governance to address the ecological crisis, we have to cooperate with associations such as Fridays for Future or Extinction Rebellion, because we are stronger together and we can be heard if we cooperate with these powerful associations. So that's how I think we can make it happen. We cannot know when we are going to achieve a World Federation if we do it. But we can be sure that if no one works and fights for it, it is not going to happen ever. So even if it seems an utopia right now, it will always remain an utopia until some people believe in the idea and start working for it. So that's our role, I believe. We don't know if we are going to witness it. Maybe we died before, but Immanuel Kant, when he was proposing a world republic, he didn't know that he would influence a European federation or a European Union, the current European Union. So we don't know the impact we may have in the future. And it may not be instant. It may not happen within our lives, but it is still worth it. That's my perspective on World Federalism and why it is worth it to fight for it even now when it seems so far.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And again, somebody has to take up the fight ahead and move ahead. So that's something we are doing, and hopefully we achieve a world federalism in our lifetime. That's something I would really look forward to. And with that, it was lovely talking to you, Jorge. It was a great interview, and I believe our viewers would like this a lot. So thanks a lot for being here today. I had a lot of doubts, had a lot of questions that got answered, and I got to know a lot about on the professional front also about how internships work, how being a part of political activism can actually help you get more opportunities, and of course the various subjects you're studying and how you exactly manage your time. And I believe a lot this would benefit our viewers also a lot. So with that, it was great meeting you, Jorge. Thanks again. And
thank you, Omkaar. I wanted to thank you for the opportunity. And I wanted to say that each of us, because you were saying, for instance, that you see it's really inspiring what I do, but we are not only individuals. If I do what I do, is because my family has helped me with that, because I have friends and I have contacts which really support me. So we are not just individuals, and I think they also deserve merit and deserve credit from what we are and for what we do. So thank you again, and I wanted to recognize this as well. Thank you so much, Omkaar.